This is Comic Picks, but the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason, what do you have on tap for us today?
Well, it's like as longtime readers and listeners will know, it's like, hey, we're almost to Fanime. It's like, and by the time this goes up, it'll be like it'll be just right before the convention starts, and we're not in the neighborhood right now. It's like this is not going to be like your usual. It's like buried treasure, buried garbage, buried mediocrity of a manga this time. It's just going to be hey, I'm talking about a manga title specifically because hey, I really want to do that. Whenever like this convention rolls around, and fortunately, like a series that I've been following for like a significant amount of time, like is finally wrapped up. That is Mob Psycho 100 by the creator One. Now, most people like know this guy because he's the guy who gave us One Punch Man, the uh, the guy who's like given it's a series that he writes with Yusuke Murata illustrating that has really like been the standard of over the top superhero action for like well over a decade at this point, if I'm being honest. Really, it's like even with what everything that America does, like in terms of just sheer spectacle, it's like this series like has consistent that series has consistently delivered for a really long while. As for its anime incarnation, well, let's just say there have been diminishing returns. It's like for instance, it's like classic first season, but that's not all that One has given us. One has also given us this series, Mob Psycho 100. Basically, it's a story of like a junior high school student in Japan who has like psychic powers that that basically like relate to his like mental stress. Like the more stressed he gets, like the greater they get, to the point where it's like yeah, he's capable of unleashing like Akira levels of like psychic intensity. But then there's this like what what lies beyond 100%. That's that's like that's been like hinted at from the start. Now the series started out as a manga, but also has been gifted with three like seasons of anime. To the point, and unlike One Punch Man, Mob Psycho's anime adaptations have actually been like increasingly adored. It's like over the course of their iterations, and deservedly so, because while I have yet to sit down and watch all of them, it's like the manga has been like consistently entertaining, like as it takes a more grounded and humanistic approach to what do you do with psychic powers, because the main character here, Mob, or as he's properly known, Shigeo Kageyama. It's like he is just a average um like junior high school kid, like who's got like psychic powers, but struggles to stand out on his own term. Like his nickname Mob comes from the fact that he's just like like a mob type character, like someone who's just like like someone in the background, and just hey, he doesn't really stand out. Like he doesn't know how to read the room, or just to be like a like a person who like interacts with people on an easy level. But that's okay because he's got these psychic powers that he's busy training under his master, quote unquote, Arataka Reagan. Now, Reagan is the proprietor of the Spirits and Such exorcism agency, and dude is shady as hell when he's introduced to us in the series, to the point where like he is just trying to like convince the guy that hey, it's like you are like suffering from the porn pop up curse, and hey, if I give you like like a proper salt splash, like or a or like a proper shoulder massage, like hey, then I'll be able to like like exercise these spirits. Reagan like is a con man, like of that we've seen before, like in fiction, but at the same time though he's not like really a bad guy in the sense that whenever he tries to like offer people like consultations regarding their like spiritual issues, he's like he's just basically like trying to offer them like like consolation, on the terms that they can, just basically, convincing them that hey, things are all right, and then they're going to be better. But when there's actually a problem, well, that's when he calls in a mob to deal with things, and mob will like will wipe the floor with him because his powers are unparalleled. But what happens when he runs into like a situation that basically demands that he be able to read the room, or that he has to interact with people, or when a bunch of other other psychic people with psychic powers like band together and determine that hey we deserve to rule the world because we've got the powers to do so. How does that go? Well, that's the thread of like Mob Psycho 100. How do you live like in a world like where you are exceptional, but like everyone else, the standard is that you're not, but everyone else is not. Like it's kind of interesting in that it's say it mirrors like One Punch Man in a different way, because while well, Saitama is basically a god in human form. Like the fact that he couldn't pass the he couldn't excel in the written test like of the Hero Society basically means that he was doomed to being a B-list hero by by their standards. Mob, well, because he's not just the doesn't have like the charisma or the people skills to promote how amazing his abilities are. Well, he's just going to have to deal with just like being like a regular high school student, like even with his powers. And to his credit and to Reagan's credit, basically he recognizes the fact that hey, like I want to live like as a regular person and just live as my regular abilities allow. And the series gets a lot of mileage out of that. Basically, him just trying to be like a decent person, and also trying to reprimand like those who just like re, use their own psychic abilities, like his first real conflict with with Teru from a neighboring junior high school to to lord over those who don't. And it's like I and overall it's like I've really enjoyed how one has presented this like these threats, because really it's like the what sets Mob apart from like from from other protagonists is that he's trying to win people over, not necessarily through like sheer force, because he believes like initially in his in Reagan's belief, like assertion that you shouldn't use powers like against other people, but that kind of goes out by the wayside once the really bad people start showing up later in the series. But Mob just does try to use empathy and understanding in order to deal with like the people who come across him. Like first Teru, or sorry, first Dimple, like the leader of the ghostly leader of a of a cult. Like then Teru. It's like then dealing with like his own brother who awakens to his own psychic powers, and then also the evil organization Claw that is that recognizes that hey hey, there are like it's like we have like all these psychic powers, so we should be lording over humanity like on our own terms. And for the first 6 volumes, like there's a nice escalation of tension like to Mob's first conflict with Claw, where like in that first conflict he decides that the best way to deal with things is to let Reagan like assume his powers and deal with them. And Reagan, does like lay out the law in terms of hey, you guys are just a bunch of like big kids trying to like like live out your own power fantasies, and that's cute and all, but it also just doesn't allow for the fact that what happens when you like encounter someone who just doesn't want to live by that by any kind of moral that kind of moral standard or any kind of moral standard for that reason. And if I'm being honest, it's like that's probably the big problem with this series, and it that it assumes that that understanding and talking will win over like the worst people in the end. But it never quite confronts the fact that hey, what happens when you encounter someone who is just completely in it for themselves and just so self-absorbed that they won't recognize like any kind of understanding. So I mean, that's that's a little disappointing, but at the same time though, it's like I still think that that Mob Psycho 100's message of empathy and understanding is like presented pretty well. In fact, it's like honestly handled more concisely than you'd expect for what is essentially like a shonen battle manga. Because hey, it's like a lot of these arcs are just basically all about Mob and Reagan just encountering um like the various psychic or spiritual threats to to overcome. And it's like and one does a good job of delivering on that over the of escalating that over the course of the series. Like from the over the course to the first encounter with Claw, and then to the second encounter, which wraps up between volumes 12 and 13. And it's like and also one's style. It's like, well, he's got a deceptively simple one, like at first, because it initially seems that hey, guy is just really big in just just like delivering just like simple clear work that he just learned how to draw recently, and he's just like all about just presenting things as clearly as possible, and that's good and all, but it's like as the series goes on, it it becomes clear that it feels like his simple style is a deliberate stylistic choice that once things start escalating, like the action starts getting more epic and more intense, that he will break out the cross hatching and the incredible the like specific detail and and the whole epic scale of the conflicts. So even though it's it initially appeals that hey, he's got this really simple look to his his style. It's it's like I really felt that it is a deliberate stylistic choice, and that he made this 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 appearance of his art, work, in order to so he could just he kept it simple. He kept his he gave it a simple appearance so that when the shit started getting real, it's like he could really deliver something different, just making it stand out. So yeah, it's like I think he's a really solid artist, and this series from beginning to end does display that. But overall, it's like it's like the series does kind of hinge on the two um conflicts with Claw. It's like over the first 12 volumes and into the beginning of the 13th. And you'd think that okay, well, now that you've you know defeated the big evil organization, well, what's next, man? Well, it's like from volumes 13 through 16, it's dealing with like a mob's like enshrinement as the leader of psychohelmetism. It's like, and also the leader of like an evil broccoli cult. So that's weird, but it also ties into his ongoing rivalry with Dimple, the spirit he defeated way back in volume one, who has always wanted to, like, to be a like lording over. It's like anyone like under under him. But Mob, but but when he and Mob face each other in volume 14, it's like there's a surprising amount of understanding that that Mob displays in terms of just dealing with Nimble. It's not just a matter of just like, hey, you're my friend, you've gone bad, I'm gonna beat you down now. It's like Mob is like, no, I realize I didn't listen to you, and I want to like understand like where you're coming from right now, and that's like and that really went a long way towards convincing me that after the like the threat of Claw was like disseminated, well, it's like he's one does have like a lot more stuff to say about like Mob's powers and how he's going to interact with them. That it continues on to the final final volumes because at in volume 15 he finds out that the girl he likes, Tsubomi, well, she's actually not going to be sticking around for the next year. She's going to be leaving soon. So he's got to find a way to confess his feelings to her. And he talks to his friends in the telepathy club and in the body improvement club, like and Reagan, and and he and he thinks that he's got the right way to to do this, but then at the very end of volume 15 he gets hit by a car, and you think, well, what's going to happen now? Well, if you've been waiting for like my thoughts on like the final volume, then here it goes, because volume 16 does deliver like a really satisfying conclusion. Um, like because like I said, once Bob's emotional intensity reaches 100, beyond that is a like three question marks in terms of what the hell is it lies beyond there. And it turns out that these question marks, they represent Mob's powers taking over and like acting on their own. So this final like confrontation is not like isn't between like Mob and like some other person. It's between Mob and his powers himself. And in that conflict, well, like now Mob has to like like deal with like his powers going out of control and trying to reason with them in terms of trying to get them to back off. But at the same time, though, all of the people that he's faced off against before, the ones that he's convinced that like, hey, like using powers to fight against people is wrong. Well, now they come in and they've got their own um like like issues to like to face up. Basically, they basically repay his like his kindness in in an understandable way. It's like, and I think that that works out really well for the series message in terms of just being having empathy and understanding for those fighting against you. Not just that that people that you're opposed against need to be demolished or defeated utterly. Just like you need to understand them, and then probably show them another way to going forward. And like I said, there are those who aren't going to understand that. And I think that that would be to the series credit if it had actually showed us what happens when some mom encounters someone who just can't believe that. But overall, I think that Mob's dedication to like living this way, it's like is admirable. And when he actually has to reason with his powers, like it comes off like really well, especially in the end when Reagan makes his big confession to him, because Reagan, yeah, I mean, yeah, he's a con man, he's shifty as hell, but at the same time though, it's like he's his beliefs are actually like like he is a guy like who believes in doing right by others, and I think that's ultimately admirable, and it leads to a generally pretty solid conclusion. Like, I mean, like looking at it objectively, it's like Mob Psycho 100 reached its like conclusion like in between volumes 12 and 13. Like these four volumes could be read as a one trying to, hey, what do I do next, man? But overall, it's like, I don't, but like, I don't think that, if he had just been like, like grasping at straws, it wouldn't have got that third season adaptation that adapted like, this material um like in anime form. So yeah, there's that, but overall it's like I think that the series, does does wrap up pretty strongly. I mean, strongly enough. I did enjoy the final volume. I think that the final chapter like is just like, hey, it's like, like everyone's here for like, Reagan's surprise party. That's cute. That's nice. But overall it's like, I think that the finale is handled the final volume is handled pretty well and definitely worth picking up for anyone who's been like reading the series like to this point. Also probably worth reading is the spin-off volume about Reagan, which was published in the middle of Dark Horse's publication of Mob Psycho 100, even though it really comes after the end of end of this series, because it basically picks up, after like, Mob has moved on to like his next level of junior high, and Reagan is dealing with the leader of the telepathy club, or the former leader of the telepathy club, Tome, and her desires to like, learn more about um like the spiritual realm. Um the issue with Reagan is that it doesn't really like dive into his character more than you see in like in the main series. In fact, I think that the arc where Reagan, has to like, confront working without Mob, like after he like, like pisses them off for relying on him so much. It's like I don't think that, like that the spin-off volume does like, like gives us like a really solid, like Reagan story that you couldn't have got in the main series. But in terms of like being a victory lap for Mob Psycho 100 itself, it's still pretty solid. And it's like it also continues to establish Reagan as a good guy, like, like regardless of the fact that, he doesn't have any actual powers, and like he'll just, continue to work for like for the good of people, regardless of that. So, but overall, it's like, Mob Psycho 100, thoroughly fantastic. I've enjoyed reading the entire series, and thank God for the fact that, all three seasons of the anime were so great, because I worry that if they weren't, the Dark Horse may not have been able to publish the like all 16 volumes, because wow, there were a lot of resolicitations of like the last few volumes before they finally came out. But hey, all 16 volumes are available and are definitely worth your time in reading them. That said, Dark Horse has shown a propensity for repackaging stuff um, in omnibus form, but in terms of like, how you repackage it's like a 16 volume series, like, or even like a 17 volume series if you want to count Reagan, then I don't know how they're going to like do that specifically. But well, like I said, just buy it right now, because like all these volumes are really great, and just like, like a fun stylish examination of like, how to live with psychic powers. It's like I know that one has a new series, Versus, out that he's writing and another artist illustrating, and hey, I gotta check that out at some point, simply because hey, one has shown that, he's got the juice for just, showing you for like delivering good manga, and between this and One Punch Man, like he's the guy that I want to keep following, like from here on out. You know, so there you go.
Okay, well, do you know what you're going to be talking about next time? But
Yeah,
let me
well,
ask
hey,
afterwards.
yeah,
No.
well, it's like, hey, John, I heard there's a new Star Wars movie out.
Yeah, Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yeah, it's like, and I think like while there's not any like Mandalorian and Grogu comics specifically out, I think like next time we good time to talk about this, why the hell the next Star Wars series from Marvel only lasted 10 issues before they canceled it? What the hell, man?
Yeah, what the heck? So yeah. So that's what you're gonna be talking about next time?
Oh yeah, it's like that 10 issue like Star Wars series that and Marvel is not doing any new ongoing Star Wars comics at this time, which is crazy. So
That's
yeah.
crazy. So, well, we're looking forward to talking next time on Comic Picks by the Glick.
Bye everyone.
Bye.